if we want to be in a state of flow, like I've spoken to loads of high stakes poker players and asked them their own individual take on flow, right? And when they're in the zone, I'm perceiving from my conversation with them that they're not in a state of ego when they're in the zone, when they're in flow. They're in a state of self. And if you are not taking care of yourself outside of poker, then to get into that state can be more challenging. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm sure Stu Unger, right, he probably fucking tore it up outside of poker. When he's on a table, he got into a state of flow. You managed to do it, right? But it's not the way that you would write the training book for it, I imagine, is what I'm saying. And we don't all want to follow a training book. We want to rip it up sometimes. But there's something there, I think, that to get into an optimal flow state, whilst we never really break it down as to what constitute creating an environment to accelerate the likelihood of that happening, if we were to break it down, it probably wouldn't be, eat a load of fucking pizza, don't associate with any of your loved ones, lock yourself in a room. It probably wouldn't be the ultimate, right? Like there's a way of like embracing that and getting into a flow state, I think.
I think the thing is that it's so complicated and so personal and so unique to everybody. If you take someone like Linus or Ike, I don't look at them and say like, okay, they're physically like very healthy people, you know, with all the loves of them, but they're fantastic at doing what they do. Yeah. And I've played against Linus before, and that motherfucker's in flow. When he plays poker, he's in flow. Probably not when he's in a social situation or whatever else it is, but when he plays poker, he's honed in to a level that other people aren't, and that's what makes him, you know, maybe the best. And so it really is, you know, you could have an unhealthy lifestyle and be in flow in a particular moment, because the whole of your life is pointing towards that moment. You're in tune with the feeling of poker. Or if you're Conor McGregor, you're in tune with the flow of fighting. And I've seen it happen to loads of different people where they just like, in fact, there was one moment I found really, really interesting. And in the retreat that I ran, the live tail retreat, there's a guy called Gary, and when he was sitting at the poker table and we're doing stuff, he was like kind of slunched over. He's a big guy, but he's kind of like slunched over like this. His whole energy was very almost like victimhood. He doesn't come across like that as a person, but it's like his whole energy was very like this. And I knew a little bit about him. I knew that he was a black belt in I forget which martial arts it was, but a black belt in something like a third degree, some black belt in something. And so I got him to stand up in front of the group, and I was like, "Can you do like 5 minutes of your, you know, you put us through a thing that you do when you teach other people a routine, or something, whatever, or drills or whatever it was." And as he did that, I was the person that was doing it at the front at first, and I could see the shift happen very quickly. It went from me being this confident leader and him being this kind of shriveled up person to him instantly, his body spreads out. He's commanding the thing, and I'm fucking trying to jab and shit, you know, do all these things that I've never really done before. And, you know, I'm starting to feel like a little bit embarrassed, and my flow is kind of like getting interrupted by that, but his is flourishing. So it's like in any moment, somebody can create that flow for themselves. But what we can do is, like, when we're not in that moment, help nourish it by adding to it, by meditating on poker, by imagining, like, and something I said to him is like, before you play poker, visualize yourself as a martial artist and take that energy to the table. And so that's something we can do. We can take energy where we are in flow in other situations and bring it to poker, or bring it to life, bring it to a relationship. So it's a really fucking complicated topic. I don't know if
I like what you just said. Actually, there was a book when I was learning to be a poker player, there was a great book that had a profound effect on me. Such a profound effect, I've forgotten the fucking name of the author. It was called A Way of the Poker Warrior, I think it was. It's one of Phil Galfon's buddies. And he used martial arts as a metaphor for poker. It was really interesting. I really like what you say there. It made me think back to my days of playing football, when I was very unconscious, but when I got on the football field, I was totally in the zone. I guess what you're bringing up for me there is the work you do outside of, let's just focus on poker, but let's say we're very good at getting into the zone in poker and flow in poker. Now doing the work outside of the game will improve the likelihood that we can get into that same state in other things, right? Like in relationships, or being a parent, or being a father, or being a mother. I can imagine it takes so much intense focus when you're playing poker or some other thing where you get in a flow state, that there's a moment after it where there's a lot of, like when I first came on here and you said to me, how you doing? I said, I've just done some coaching. You're like, wow, that takes lots of energy. And sometimes you need that gap, right? Like to be able to reset almost and transition into another role, right? So, I really, really like what you're saying there. Can I share something on money, actually? Because, people play poker for money. So I read a great book called Creating Money recently.
Yeah, I love how much you read, by the way. And I love how much you share what you've learned with talking to people and reading. Like it's I don't know if there's a name for that, but you just like absorb all of this information, then I'd put it in your own words and articulate it. And it's very rare.
It's so funny, actually. I just created a quest for Strive, and it's a part of the quest is they have to go out and ask 10 people to answer 5 questions about themselves. 4 questions. It's like, what are my top skills? What am I really good at? What's my superpower? When do I light up? And
the members of Strive have to go out and ask other people those questions.
Yes.
Cool.
So there's a meditation called the Law of Emergence, where I'm trying to help them. Well, I offer up a formula for life, which they can take or not. It's like a framework to help them. And it's the Acon and the Ochi, right? It's like, I'm just saying that what we usually do is we grow up through culture to look outside of ourselves from the answers. We look outside of ourselves for higher power. And I invite you to look inside yourself for that higher power. I invite you to look inside yourself for the answers, right? Part of that then is now go out and ask 10 people why you're fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Right? Because people don't feel they have it in them, right? And anyway, so every quest I create, I do myself. So I said to 10 people, what do you think of me? And one of the people I sent to was Talal, Talal Security, right? And I'm like, what do you think of me then? And what's my superpower? And he wrote, reading books. So it's funny.
Yeah, can I give a go at answering that question?
Yeah. Well, let me get, what were the questions? What's my superpower?
It's your superpower. So one superpower that you have is that you have a lot happening internally. Like a lot happens to you internally. Like a lot of difficult thoughts, a lot of negative thoughts have happened pretty much your entire life, I think. And it's way more than other people would have to deal with. And one of your superpowers is, first of all, to keep going, to just keep going, keep understanding yourself, keep unraveling the ego, the heaviness, the negativity. And then second of all, to then communicate that and empathize with other people, because you've been through so many different things. You've had so many different thought patterns, so many different traumas, so many different challenges in your life. So it's like instantly when you meet a new person, you can empathize with something because you've just been through so much of it yourself and you've thought about it so much yourself. So your superpower is that you can communicate this whole array of different challenges of the human experience and psyche that you've now just been through in such a short space of time. And you can communicate it in this like genuinely deep, caring, empathetic way because you've been through it yourself. And because of your curiosity for yourself and for other people mixed in with your empathy for yourself and other people, it's like a very powerful healing mechanism. I'd say that's your superpower.
Thank you. Now that makes me feel really emotional. So like, when with people listening to this, actually going out and asking for feedback from, first of all, you'll realize, oh, fuck, like not many people actually know me that well to answer these 4 questions. That's the first thing. And then when you get the feedback, it's quite emotional because it's like, oh, wow, that person really sees me. What I perceive of you, of the superpower, what comes up to me is almost like a selfish, like, what is the superpower that Charlie has that that impacts me. And it is your unfiltered. It's your lack of a filter. It's your acceptance of yourself and your ability to go anywhere and be vulnerable and to be authentic and truthful, which I feel is a massive form of healing, because it allows other people the confidence and the courage to reciprocate because they feel safe. And if you look in poker, I've seen you tweet things in poker, and people really attack you. And I've wanted to jump to your defense because I'm like, this is just hypocritical. Like, every human being has something in them that they're ashamed of, that are embarrassed of, that they're guilty of, thoughts that come up that they wish they never had about, I don't know, fucking their mother or sucking their sister's tits or whatever comes up in their minds, right? And yet everybody walks around as if none of this shit happens. And then when somebody actually says, oh, no, it does, it happens in my mind, and I'm happily married and I have kids, or I'm happily in a relationship with my girlfriend or whatever, like, the world kicks off. So, I thank you for your vulnerability and your openness. And you are a professional poker player, right? So what we're talking about here and sharing feedback is actually a part of what we're talking about in a meta way, right? It's like the skill that you have that can be transferred to the business of being a poker player, right? Like, almost certainly, like sitting at a poker table, a live poker table, and being able to connect empathically with other people's emotions and feelings, to be able to look at someone and read them, not read what hand they got, but like read them as a human being, like, fucking super strong, right?
Yeah, no, it's a huge thing, and thank you, by the way. I was really feeling what you were saying, and it means a lot, because throughout my whole life I've been very, like, I've had the desire to express vulnerability, and when I was younger I just got bullied everywhere I went. I got bullied at school, I got bullied at choir, I got bullied at scouts. I just got beaten the shit out of wherever I went, because I was this like vulnerable Asperger kid. And because of that, I had to go through this radical journey of self-acceptance, and like really, really intensely looking at all of these sides of me that had been picked on and told that I was whatever, and have to realign my perception of myself to be like, okay, actually, you're not so bad, dude. Don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
And then come to the next fucking neo playground, which is poker Twitter, where you express vulnerability. And it's not cool to express vulnerability. It's, to a lot of people, at least, or to most people, it's cool to close down and make jokes. Make jokes at other people's expense, especially. And that's what, a lot of people on Twitter would reward, is people that don't show the deepest nuggety, insidey parts of themselves. They were like, yeah, fuck yeah, you made a joke that make that guy look like shit, and that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Whereas if you express vulnerability, what that does is, it opens, and I have so many people expressing so many deeply vulnerable and personal things to me every day. And it's beautiful. I love it. And if anybody out there wants to share something with me, my fucking DMs are open. I love it.
DMs are open for that, but none of this hypocritical bullshit. I
got love for those people as well. I prefer a DM than
But I remember when I did the I Am High Stakes Poker series, and I was looking at the YouTube, like a video would go out. And there was an egoic part of me that wanted approval from the poker community. So I would read the comments, and then every comment they said, wow, the interviewer knows what he's doing. Oh, fuck Charlie, the interviewer knows what he's doing. My ego was like, oh, they approve of me. And then someone would say, who's the fucking idiot with a mustache? Or, wow, this guy talks too much. And then my ego would start crying, and it would get upset, and it would feel like, oh my God, everybody hates me. So in a way, the feedback, even though you could look at it and go, what would possess somebody to say, I think this interview is fucking an idiot, right? Like, what would possess them to do that? But it's really helpful, actually, because what I like to do is, like, whenever I'm triggered, and again, like for poker players, like wanting to be great professional poker players, like if Charlie says something in this interview that triggers me, then I ask myself two questions. Where in my life am I doing that very thing? And I despise myself for it. And where am I not doing it? And I'm really fucking envious that Charlie's doing it, but I'm not allowing myself to do it, right? So I think there's great learning in the feedback if you are conscious enough to not let it overrun your ego. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if you're not in that state, stay the fuck away from it.
Yeah, it's a big thing that I've had to learn, and I actually use Twitter as almost like a training ground for future when I get into politics and philanthropy and things like that on a larger scale. Like I want to be at the point where there's nothing that anybody could say that will rock me, you know. And I'm really getting close to it. And I feel like for a million miles away from where I was even a few years ago, which is crazy. And I also want to be at a point where nothing that somebody says positive about me will rock me either. I'll embrace the love. If somebody's saying something, like before when you were saying something good about me, I want to feel that. But I also don't want my ego to be like inflated from it, you know? I think what comes from having a good understanding of oneself means that compliments don't mess with you, and criticisms and judgments don't mess with you either, or insults. And it's a tough one to find that balance.
Being open to receive it, and I'm like. How often we can dish when someone gives us a compliment, we're conditioned to go, no, or when someone apologizes to you, it's like, oh, you don't need to apologize. And it's just like getting into that practice of saying, thank you. I received that with love, you know, like, and it doesn't mean anything to me. Like, you know, I totally get what you're getting at. When I actually, obviously I interview a lot of people, you would not believe how many high stakes poker players say to me, I don't care what people think about me, and that's one of my strengths. And my bullshit detector is just going, dum, 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 dum. I'm like, of course you do. And you can't control it. It's just like, you know, you can do the best you can, but it's a long journey.